This is where the fun begins.
I had fought the worst of all wars and witnessed the redemption of evil. I have seen balance restored to the Force. But order can turn to chaos, as it did when I was born. Now, with my loved ones and my loyal allies, I face a new challenge unlike any before. And I'm not sure at this time we can win.
Star Wars Vector Prime by R.A. Salvatore, the first novel of the new Jedi Order.
I'm telling you, this finale, it's unbelievable how tepid contemporary art seemed compared to the passionate quality of this finale. So you have this like huge, it's like romantic nature painting, apocalyptic landscape of the lava. Lucas crosscuts the destruction of the Senate chamber, and you have the destruction of industry going on. And then, after all these horrors, it is so beautiful. I'm saying, my God, nothing in the last 30 years in any of the arts has been produced as emotionally compelling and significant as the finale of Revenge of the Sith.
Are you sure? So be it. Did you miss me?
CAF. Lots of it. For me and for the Ready Room. I have a feeling this mission is not one we can fly in our sleep.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to OG Star Wars channel and Thursday's CAF Chat. How are you guys doing? Happy to see everybody hopping on the chat here. And I know you guys aren't literally hopping, but you know what I mean. Good morning. Good morning from where I'm at. And the question is, what's in your mug? What are you enjoying as we sit and listen, or as you sit and listen and participate in the chat of George Lucas era Star Wars and beyond? How are you guys doing? Yeah, today's going to be a pretty packed schedule here. A lot to talk about, a lot to say. And some things were announced on the thumbnail, some things weren't. So stay tuned for that. So with that being said, let me see who is in the chat. But before I do, if you are here catching, not gonna, if you are catching the replay, thank you so much for coming in and making time and listening in. I'd love to hear from you. So leave a reply in the comments. Let me know you're here. Let me know of any kind of thing, anything you want to contribute to the conversation that we're creating here as well. All right. So again, I'm your host and welcome. CAF Chat every Thursday morning. Well, almost every Thursday morning, unless noted, obviously. But every Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And it's always good to meet you guys here and chat about Star Wars. So let's see here. We have Double A. What's up, y'all? How are you doing? And yes. All right. And then our mod, Mr. Soul Assassin here, our Vato, how are you doing? And those on Rumble, if you're on Rumble, hello to my Rumbleites. How are you guys doing? How are you guys doing? I'm so happy that you're reporting on that end right there. I haven't, I have to open up the chat for that section there, but I am glad you guys are there. And if you haven't had a chance, go over there, follow and subscribe. So follow is basically subscribing YouTube term, and subscribe is basically membership YouTube term. So feel free to contribute to the channel on that side. All right, so let's move on. We have Scran all the way there in Scotland, has not made stateside yet. Still waiting to hear about what's going on with that for him. I know he's probably just squirming in his seat to, get the move going, right? I would be. Hello, everyone. Hit the like and grab some CAF. Yes, grab some CAF. And then Conrado from the Philippines. How are you doing? Good morning. It's probably early morning there to you. So good early morning. I'm glad you are tuning in. And let's see here. And who else is hopping on? Wolfscar, how are you doing? So Su Koigar. I still have to get used to that language, but it's pretty cool, the Mandalore. 2 a.m. staying strong. Dang, okay. So you are on a different part of the world too. Thank you guys for tuning in. And I do have the streaming on Twitter as well as another platform or another source to get the channel out there, even though I don't make anything from it, which is fine. It grabs attention to the channel. So if you're listening there on Twitter, hello, feel free to leave a comment there. I don't have Twitter pulled open to see the comments there. Or come over here to either Rumble or YouTube and join in the conversation. Yeah, so today there's one more thing that I added on the schedule. So basically we are going to get into, I never realized, and Soul Assassin brought this up to me, and I'm like, damn, really cover the Mandalorian events for the new Jedi Order, which happened in a novella and comics, and or in a novella, yeah. And so we are going to talk about that. We're going to go ahead and cover that, the Mandalorians' quote unquote contribution to the fight against the Yuuzhan Vong. So we'll get into that. I'm pretty excited about that. Of course, we have our book of the week. We have our Lucas facts. Then we're going to get into the so-called soft reboot that happened or whatever before Disney purchased Lucasfilm. What do you think about that? Do you think that was real or fake? Do you think people are taking equivocation and thinking it's real? Boba Fett, practical man, yes. Casual. That's what we're going to talk about. And excuse me. Gotta hang on. Damn, I hope I don't get these yawns. You could still be wide awake and still fucking get the yawns, right? So hopefully I'm not yawning now, because you know how the yawns can get, right? All right. So let me see here. Let me look at, because I have everything set up that I need to. So the so-called soft reboot that everybody's harping about, trying to say, well, it wasn't Disney. Disney didn't do anything. They never rebooted the Star Wars universe, first. It happened before. So they're going along with this narrative. And a lot of what's being said here is equivocations or and appealing to authority in a sense. All right. And then we're going to get into an iconic Star Wars game officially removed from streaming without warning. So we're going to get into that. And you guys may or may not know what that one is. And so, but we'll get into that. And I believe there's one more. Yeah, there's one more on the topic, and we'll get to. Why am I drawing a blank on it? Oh, yeah. Vader versus Maul. So it is being said, and I'll pull that article up. It's not on my tab, so that's why I'm like, well, I know there's another one. Vader versus Maul. Before I get on with this, what's going to be discussed here later on, who do you prefer, Vader or Maul? That is the question. Vader or Maul? Now, maybe, let me go ahead. Let me see if I can make a, don't answer. I'm going to make a poll. Okay. So I'm going to do it right now while I'm thinking about it. Vader versus Maul. Vader versus Maul. All right, let me see. Let me get to my screen here so I can make a poll. Let's see here. Close that out. All right. Now, come on. You can load up. Thank you. Okay, where's the poll thingy of the bobber here? Why am I not seeing it? Oh, let me see. No? What the heck? What's going on? All right. There we go. It was just a brand new button, how it's organized. I haven't done one in a long time. That's why. All right. So who do you prefer most? All right. Okay. Darth Vader. I'm not going to put Maul as a Darth. I'm just going to put Maul. So I'm sharing the poll right now, and we'll get into this. So if you're on Rumble, there's no options for polls. Go ahead and say it in the chat. I'm pretty sorry. Or come over here to YouTube and vote if you can. I know purists can't do that. So Vader versus Maul, who do you prefer? The chat, the poll is going on right now. As a character, so as a character, like, and that all the nuances, everything goes in with the character. So yeah, and that goes with the fighting, strength, all of that. So it's analysis. Who do you prefer, Vader or Maul? Who's your favorite, Vader or Maul? All right, both are tragic. Both had their arc in the story that contributed to the overall story. And I'm talking about 10 minutes for Maul, not him returning, because I don't think he serves anything to the lore after George had him return. And I still believe, and this is just a opinion, and opinions only that until proven, right? But I still think that it was Filoni that convinced George to bring back Maul. So with that being said, that's just my belief, right? So, and until it's proven otherwise, it's just a belief, right? It's just opinion. But that's the opinion I have on that. So Vader versus Maul. All right, let's see here. Where'd the poll go? Did it post on top? Damn, I feel like a noob when it comes to this thing here. Welcome to live chat. Remember, Did the poll display? Because I'm not seeing it on my end. Oh, I see it. It's just where it's at. Okay. It's just how it's displayed. All right. So this is only versus the two. Go. Get out of here. These cats are friggin' annoying right now. All right. So the life of Alora in her home, trying to stream and talk Star Wars with you guys, right? So, yeah. Oh my goodness. So Vader versus Maul, between the two. No other character needed in this conversation. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into and I see Mike is here. Hello, how are you doing? Get into the book of the week, because I don't want to waste time here. We have a lot to talk about. So I would love to get this party started. Right. And so let's get into the book of the week.
I hate to say it, but it looks like the item you're searching for doesn't exist.
Impossible. Perhaps the archives are incomplete.
If an item does not appear in our records, it does not exist.
It does not exist. So book of the week, here we go. I am currently beginning to reread it again, just as just another story to dive into while I read through the new Jedi Order. So we have Brian Daley's Stars End, Han Solo Adventures. So cover Wayne Barlow, published April 1979, and the timeline is about 2 BBY, Battle Before Yavin. So here are some continuity notes. Han Solo Star's End was written by author Brian Daley and published at the by Del Rey. Editorial constraints required that Daley's story had to be before the events of Star Wars, A New Hope, but without the Empire or other principal characters from the film. To accommodate this, Daley created the corporate sector. So the corporate sector, there you go. That's where that came from. And you hear that, the corporate sector within the PT era, all of that. All right. Novels published before 1990 did not have the Star Wars logo on their cover. Later prints, later prints added it. To distinguish the first contribution to the expanded universe, the label Classical Star Wars was added. So the Classical Star Wars was a red label on top, just to distinguish and to pay homage to the very first novels contributing to the early EU. Now, I shared the links out there on Twitter, and I think here on YouTube. I wish there's a way I could put posts here on Rumble. But Tim did a wonderful research on when the Expanded Universe label or the name Expanded Universe came to be. And I believe from rereviewing it again, it was 1998-ish is when the first evidence of the term Expanded Universe came about. So before then, it was just Star Wars. It was just part of the universe, right? It was just part of the saga. And then as the development kept moving forward after 1990, the word expanded or expanding from the movies, etc., started playing in, and then eventually landing on calling it all Expanded Universe. So it was a great little research study for Expanded University that Tim did. So I would go to his channel, check out 1, 2, and 3, just to get a history. So the Expanded Universe as a name for the part of the media of Lucasfilm, the novels, the games, and the comics and stuff like that was never a thing until 1998. And but it was never used as a label either. It was just used as a point of like, this is our media sources to this greater universe. So that's where that came from. All right. So Yavin. Yeah. So that's a bit of history on that. And when Leland announced the hierarchy of canon is what it's called, or the canon tier, everything that was in there, like S, C, G, for example, were all canon to each other. The only thing that was not canon was the N section, non-canon, and that was the stories labeled or stories called infinities, and some tales. Don't get confused, like with Tales of the Jedi and stuff like that. But there were some tales that weren't considered canon, but not Tales of the Jedi. So that right there shares with what isn't a part of the greater lore. Now, if a non-canon story was brought in or a character, then that's what makes it more valid. Nazi Kid, you really thought classic Star Wars was a gotcha? Correct. That was funny as hell. It's not, when you go and look and do the research and stuff and look into what that label is just to pay homage to these past novels. Now, S-canon, if anything that was entered from S-canon, so S-canon basically is stories that basically were never used or never highlighted again within the greater continuity. So they were just pushed off to the side. They were still valid, but they were still there. They were still there. So not using push off to the side as a negative connotation or anything like that. But once anything was used from these very early stories into the greater canon continuity, then they made their way to a higher tier. Now, does that mean S is not canon? No, not necessarily. I think the only thing that contributes to the non-canon portion of S is the gameplay, how you play versus what the canon story is. And because how you play, of course, that's not canon. So if you have those role-playing type thing games, like Western games and stuff like that, they have canon stories in there. But then what you create from that is not canon. And I think people don't realize that as well. So S is like quasi-canon, it's still canon, but there's some elements to it that's not. So you get that gray area, if you want to call it. And no, I'm not talking about gray Jedi. And so here you go. I do have this Han Solo adventures, but I have it in the trilogy form under one book. And I have the 1992 version, and this version has Star Wars, but it doesn't have the classical era. And this was published after 1992. So, and even once New Jedi Order came out, I believe Corellian Trilogy might have callbacks to this as well. And among other resources, so there's a lot of like continuity historical callbacks to the Han Solo adventures, even during this 1992 reprint. Now, the 1994 does have the classical Star Wars label on it, and I think some prints after that then did not. So, but anyways, so just to go with that, great series. And another interesting fact is that James Luceno was good friends with Brian Daley. Is Brian Daley still alive? I don't want to say he's dead and he's not. But anyways, Brian Daley is James Luceno's great friend. So they were really close. All right. So how many of you guys have read the adventures? How many of you guys read the adventures? Let me see. That's on the agenda. Nazo. Yes, it is. The infamous picture of Han fighting a giant otter. Oh, yeah, the Corellian Trilogy. And I think that's the Solano, the showdown at Solano, or forget the name of it. Man, I'm just butchering the title, but I know which one you're talking about. So the Solonians, or whatever they're called, basically they were drawn out to look like otter type beings. So that's kind of interesting, right? And anti-EU people use that as a negative connotation or negative evidence, a negative evidence to how bad the EU was. Is that picture? They get so offended by it. Oh, look at Hans fighting an otter, a river otter at that. And let's see here. Even if they had, it wouldn't have decanonized the EU. It just would have brought up the concept of a multiverse. All right, so there you go. Book of the Week by Brian Daley, number 1 out of the trilogy, Stars End. Stars End. So again, I am rereading this, and so I'm excited because I have the trilogy in paperback. And it's good to go back and revisit books that have been published later, like early in the inception of Star Wars. And then when you have read the whole entire EU, you pick up on things like, oh crap, yeah, this was mentioned in this part of the timeline. Oh wow, Han's friend, he meets up with him in New Jedi Order. So there's a lot of great storytelling and continuity going on. So even back in the early days, there's even continuity being kept before Zahn, but before Timothy Zahn's trilogy came out. But what solidified that renaissance of keeping everything track in one continuity is because of the reception of the trilogy. All right, so let's see here. Let's get into the next one now. And you guys might know what that is.
That's great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
All right, so Lucas Facts, and this one right here might surprise you, maybe not. So there's 2 in 1. George Lucas told me personally that he loved it, Dark Empire. Some people had a problem with the bringing back of the Emperor, which clone-wise, but as I have explained elsewhere, we did that under George Lucas's direction. That's Tom Beich, 2003 interview. Now here's Cam Kennedy. This is a bit of information Cam Kennedy shared in a 2018 interview. After George Lucas seen the first book series of Dark Empire, Cam Kennedy stated George Lucas liked it and asked for a second series. So these two correlate with each other for the fact that George Lucas liked Dark Empire, told both Tom and Cam. And 2 different interviews, 2 different time frames. So I thought I'd share that with you guys here. So despite what he may or may not have wanted for this series, comic book series, he praised it and asked for a second one. So I thought I'd share that with you guys here. How are you guys doing in the chat? Do we have any people on Rumble? Probably not. I do not see. Doesn't mean they're not there. Let me see here. Let's see here. I'll pull up the Rumble on my phone. Pull up the Rumble on my phone. Let's see here. All right. Got 2 people listening in over there. Thank you so much again. Me, Erin, just talking about Star Wars on Rumble in the morning. I don't expect a lot of visits there, but that's cool. However, if you guys like Rumble, you can go over there as well. If you have Rumble, if you don't, go over there and follow me. Follow the Gatekeepers Alliance as well, and support. So I thought I'd share this with you. 2 different accounts here, and I think it's very telling that no matter what George thought about Emperor coming back, that he liked the story. Even if George was not involved, he's still responsible, and we know he had every chance to make Dark Empire non-canon officially, yet he did not. Correct. So if he didn't want it, if he didn't like the story or whatever, then he could have it put in non-canon or just discontinued whatsoever. Now, he tried to discontinue the Christmas special, but because of the age of the internet, that was hard. He was trying to get rid of all evidence of it, but because it was already on the internet, it was just so hard for him to do. Now, that right there, we can say, well, it could be for this because, he already had the series 1 printed out under Lucasfilm. But with that being said, there could be a label on there in the future prints, and it could be discontinued with the story going forward. So, yeah. So I thought I'd share that as well. And these are on YouTube, and they are on Twitter for you guys to enjoy. And then I keep forgetting to put them on my Discord, but I will try to remember and have them there for you guys. So let's see here. Now, there's one thing I wanted to get into before we get into the new, before we get into the new Jedi Order talk. So how many of you guys, before we get further into what I want to pull up, how many of you guys read Practical Man? Boba Fett Practical Man. Now, we're going to talk about the events of the Yuuzhan Vong. So the events of the Mandalorians during the Yuuzhan Vong War. Because I briefly grazed on them during the early lives when we got into the New Jedi Order events, right? So I briefly talked about them. Again, Soul Assassin's like, hey, what about the Mandalorians? And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I didn't really cover them. And so the beginning of the events involving the Mandalorian has happened like 25 BBY. And then the Mandalorian battle was 29 BBY, I believe. So we have those there, or something like that. I could be off, but going at the top of my head. So we have the Mandalorian involvement, and and the stories behind that, and how basically they eventually helped the Republic with the battle against the Vong. So we'll get into that here pretty soon. But there's one thing I want to get into right now, and thank you, Casual Chris, for sharing this. And so you might know now what I'm talking about. So let me go ahead and pull that up. But with this question about Vader versus Maul, it's not that. When it comes to Vader and Anakin Skywalker, do you think that he had a split personality? Or do you think that he was still, because it's still the same person, still the same body, yes. Do you think eventually that became a split personality? So we're going to get into that. I'd like to hear from you guys in the chat. Let's see here, share screen. And then we'll get into the Vong talk. And then we'll get into this quote unquote soft reboots. And then cringe factor. So again, heavy schedule here. All right. Let me go back to the screen because I want to make sure that this is sharing and that it is. There we go. So I swear I did not intentionally meant to stop right there on how he looks. So that looks fucking funny. All right, let's see here. Double A says, I know that Boba has to choose between the horrors and survival and fighting alongside the Republic against the Yuuzhan Vong. That's all I know. Cool. Well, we'll talk about that more here pretty soon. The Mandalorian versus the Vong. This is the true way. Well, it's like Grievous. Anybody with common sense should agree. Becoming like a cyborg to the extent will force your psychological to adapt to the horrors. Yeah, exactly. So we'll get into this right now. I'm not going to play it just yet. But let me see. Okay, let me rewind it.
Did you misunderstand the point? It's such a hilarious.
Okay, I don't know why it's blue. There we go. All right. So this is what Casual Chris says right here. How do you misunderstand the point? I have no idea. Maybe I worded it wrong, so my bad. But Vader represents the robot, not the human side. Again, bro, was redeemed, and Leia is becoming more Force, and so that's where he cuts it off at. So with that being said, so Vader is the robot entity of what Anakin used to be. And George Lucas even stated, like, there's three main villains in there. You have Maul, who is a persona, like the evil persona, right? Then you have Dooku, who is the fallen Jedi. And then you have General Grievous, who was a cyborg. Represents the machine Anakin became. So all three of those, and I believe, I think it is in the archives that he talks about it, but also you can find this information on, on the internet. You can find him talking about that. And I think I pulled this up not too long ago as well. Or someone has. So that is clearly stated by George, that Anakin ceased to be who he was and became the entity of those three represented in the prequel trilogy. And that is the truth. Let me hide this thing here. That is the truth. So let me go ahead and just try to go back.
How did you misunderstand the point? It's such a hilariously egotistical way to start this. I understood you perfectly, but you're just wrong. In fact, you're so wrong that George Lucas specifically had content removed from the Revenge of the Sith novelization because it might have given people the impression that what you're saying is accurate. So no matter how many—
Okay, so what is this Revenge of the Sith information that was removed? Now, I didn't read all the annotations of the recent print of Revenge of the Sith. So, am I missing something? In fact, I do need to at least get a hold of a copy so I can study through it, because as a content creator on George Lucas era Star Wars, I would love to learn more. I just have not had a chance to get my hands on that. So I wish he would cite what was removed, because what he says, what was removed from the Revenge of the Sith novelization, when you watch Revenge of the Sith, and then you also watch Return of the Jedi, it is clear that Anakin is transformed into something different. Yes, it was his choice to go dark, but after what happened to him on Mustafar, he's completely transformed into something different. Now, General Grievous, do you guys think that he is the being he used to be before Dooku took him and made him into a cyborg? See, that's the thing. So he completely went mechanical, and that's done intentionally by George Lucas. Let's see here. He keeps trying to say they're the same person, but I agree. But they both represent the different ideologies and experiences. That's the same body. It's the same person, but the personalities are completely different. And there's people that did studies on split personalities when on Anakin turning into Vader. And so, they applied our modern psychology to this mental disorder. And when someone goes into something very extreme, they do transform. And this right here is basically Anakin fully transformed into something horrific. And he's seen who he used to be in the past as someone weak. So there we go. So like I said, there's more nuance than what he's saying. It's not just cut and dry here. There's a lot going on there. Nice face pause. I keep pausing there at that one, huh? Belay turns Maul into a amalgam of himself, Dooku and Grievous. You're wrong. Vader did spend decades trying to erase Anakin from his mind in the comics, correct? Vader coughs for Grievous coughs for Vader breathes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just laughing at how you got this face frozen. I did at the beginning too. Sorry, I'm not gonna say sorry. I think it's funny too. It brings humor into the situation. All right.
Many times I have to reiterate this. We'll do it again. Anakin and Vader are not separate people.
Is it not plain, or does it keep pausing? That's weird. Okay.
They're not separate identities. They are not split halves of the same person. They're the same guy. He's just going by a different name. Anakin Skywalker killed Obi-Wan Kenobi. Anakin Skywalker tortured Leia Organa on the Death Star. The fact that he was going by a different name when he did those things doesn't change that it's him in the suit. And frankly, Leia is smarter than you are making her out to be.
All right. So what do you think about that? Vader has a personality disorder. Every time I pause it. So are you guys hearing it? Are you guys hearing when I'm playing it? Because whenever I bring the screen back, it has this paused here. So with this, he's saying he rated Tatooine Go 6 out of 10 in his prior video. Okay, he thinks it's average then. Just above average. So hopefully you guys are hearing it when I play it. It's not playing right now. I have it on pause. So hopefully you guys are hearing it. But he's saying that when he killed, Obi-Wan, when he tortured Leia, it was still Anakin. So do you guys think that, believe that? Or you think it is now Vader, that personality that risen from, the fight, the anger, the fear, the fight, almost losing his life, the transformation into a cyborg, basically mostly he's human still, but he's also part cyborg, I guess you could say. So in the suite and learning Padme died, Anakin truly died in the sense he gave up hope. He had nothing left to live for except being Palpatine's slave, correct? Maul is Vader with the intact skin to make cool Sith tattoos. All right, let's get back to that.
And is smart enough to understand that. Vader was the murderous robot in her perspective is such a degrading way of viewing Leia, as though Anakin just has to put on a pair of Groucho Marx glasses and she'll think it's a different guy. She understands that they're the same person. Like, even if it...
So Vader, so what do you think about that bit right there? That bit right there. So Vader is the robot, right? He is the robot, and he's basically he is basically like Casual Chris never, what I've read there, Casual Chris never said anything about Leia not distinguishing, unless you did, and he's not being fair and sharing the whole conversation. But Leia, when you go through the lore, Leia understands who Anakin is versus Vader. She knows them as one being, one personality, not one personality, but one body, that Vader embodies Anakin. But her vision and how she sees and knows of Anakin on his dark side is Vader. And yes, her perspective, Vader is a robot. Correct. When she finds Speed's journal, she realizes there was humanity there, but as Anakin in the innocent boy. No, you're correct. And that's what I was getting to. She knows Vader as this horrific, robotic, emotionless being. But she also knows that's her father. And her father is Anakin. So two can exist at once. So let's go on. The droid. Okay.
Were true that Anakin and Vader were split identities, even if your perception weren't wrong, which it is, Leia has no reason to acknowledge or care about that distinction. He's still the person who did all those things to her. You say that Leia knows he is a fool.
She had to go through learning the distinction. And that was a difficult journey. So in Trusat Bakura, and I know he's going to get to that. Trusat Bakura, Anakin appears to her, never really appears to Luke, but appears to Leia to help her realize that her carrying this anger and this fear about him or about what happened and not finding peace can taint her. And she didn't recognize Anakin at first sight because he wasn't in the suit. He wasn't looking like Vader. But because she knows that Anakin is her father and two, you can easily put 2 and 2 together. She then said what she needed to do as if he was Vader. She treated him like Vader, giving the readers the experience of her seeing Anakin Skywalker as Vader, as this mechanical being, right? And then later on, when we get into Tatooine Ghost, it's like her journey of making peace with her lineage. And through there, the Force moves things, right? And the Force took her on this curious journey where she learned about her father as a young child winning the pod race, as a hero, as someone who then later was a hero of the Clone Wars, basically, if you want to, get further into his life. And he learned the humanity who is Anakin versus the lifeless, meaningless being, heartless being that is Vader. So she learned to distinguish the two. And she had to. And because of that, when she was pregnant with her third child and given birth, and actually gave birth to him, and this is through Han saying, like agreeing with her, because I think Han wanted her to, or Anakin to be a junior. Imagine a Han Jr., right? They agreed that the baby should be named after her father, Anakin, because the humanity part, to celebrate who he was as the human, as the compassionate one, as the hero, as the chosen one, I guess you can say. As the chosen one, not Vader, because she distinguished between the two. She didn't see them as one person anymore. That was part of her healing journey. She learned to distinguish them from each other. And later on in the Thrawn trilogy, and I think it's the Dark Force Rising or whatever it's called, the Nogri basically called her Lady Vader. She still cringed because it's Vader. Would she have cringed if they said Anakin? They have no reason to say that, but she wouldn't have cringed. So you can see the distinct differences between the two on her viewpoint. On her viewpoint. So she distinguished Anakin as the good, the hope, the hero. And she wanted people to see that through her son. Big, high, tall order, I know, right? That's even shared in the lore, like New Jedi Order and stuff like that. But again, she wouldn't have named him Vader because she distinguishes the two. So let's move on. Let's go on, because I covered a lot from what he said here already. So we're just going to take a listen.
Force Ghost, yeah. And when she talked to that Force Ghost, Intrusive Bakura, she told him to piss off because that was written more in character with who Leia is. Not that that's Troy Denning's fault, though. Denning was just trying to make sense of a comic that was full of so many ridiculous ideas that after it came out, George Lucas had to say, all right, you guys got to run these things by me for now. And again, textually.
All right, so as the Troy Denning part for Tatooine Ghost, no, he wasn't trying to make sense of Dark Empire. Of what happened with Dark Empire. Basically, he was given the opportunity to open, the PT was opened up to authors. And so he got to write about Shmi. He got to write about, write an adventure of discovery for Leia, discovering her lineage, discovering about her grandma, discovering about who her father truly was. Now, does this pay homage to basically who her third born child eventually became, or the named after? Yes, it does. But that Tatooine Ghost was not a novel to make sense of Dark Empire, like he's suggesting. I'm retarded, as late as the green dots are to the fandom. Hey there, so we have Purist over there. How are you doing? I see you. And yeah, so basically, to insinuate that Tatooine Ghost is trying to pull together and put together pieces from Dark Empires to make it make sense, that again, that's fucking bullshit. There's some people that love Tatooine Ghost, and some people are like, it's just a way for Troy Denning to now play with the PT era content that was opened up and released to the authors. And that's fine. I mean, because there's a lot of callback to the Phantom Menace there. Like the pod racing and Anakin winning it, and Shmi, and then also Shmi earning her freedom, and how it was earned through Qui-Gon and the Tobal, I guess you could say, gem. And so there's a lot of that. But really, I never got anything regarding Dark Empire at all through Tatooine Ghost. So there you go. So we'll move on. No, we're not going to move on. We're going to carry on with this.
Anakin Solo would have been better off if she hadn't named him Anakin, so it was a terrible decision, even in universe. Like, we'll ignore the out-of-text fact that Anakin Solo died as a direct result of the fact that he was named Anakin, and it's...
All right, so with that being said, now in lore, not a bad choice. In the creative process, with George's involvement, George never told the authors, and this is also reinstated, if he would do his fucking research, they would know that Lucas did not ask them to kill off Anakin Solo. He just asked them to switch who the main protagonist is between the brothers. That's it. That's all. They were never given the directive to kill off Anakin Solo because of Anakin Skywalker's arc that was being created for the PT. So that right there is a blank, like, you didn't do your research, lie, I guess you could say, or mistruth or whatever, or, you know, you're just misinformed, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Misinformed. And yes, Soul Assassin, Anakin is a cursed name in a sense, yes, that she wanted to, because of course, the person who was Anakin, who went to the dark side and became Vader, yeah, he carries that awful burden of what he did. And Leia wanted to give a more different approach. This Tard is, I can't find his name, but yeah, so we'll move on. We'll keep going. It says it on the bottom. Let me look at the screen. This Tard is Alex Lezio, or whatever his name is. All right, let's move on.
Focus on the fact that his relationship with his father was extremely strained because he was named after the guy that tortured him, which is one more.
That is not even a thing between Anakin Solo and his father Han. His dad and him never had a strained relationship due to his name. That was never a thing at all. And Han Solo was very proud of all of his kids. Jaina was named after Han's mom. And through research and stuff like that, once he started learning more about his lineage and stuff like that. And Jason, you know, there's no historical callback to like family lineage or anything like that for Jason, but for Anakin, there is a, you know, basically named after another relative. But between Han and Anakin Solo, there was no hardship, nothing between each other because his name was Anakin, named after his grandfather. No. Now, in the beginning of New Jedi Order, there was that strain between the two because of what happened, but that's all about grief. That's all about loss. Nothing to do with a name. Nothing to do with a goddamn name. You know, so I don't know where he's getting this from at all. Let's see here. I'm sure he pulls bitches left and right. Haha. Strong estrogen vibes. Oh my goodness. He's another Star Wars critic channel, yeah. Wait. You know what this guy looks like? That reminds me of Tommy Stella without the glasses. Hi, I'm Tommy Stella. All right, let's finish this up.
One thing that these posts so hilariously leave out is, oh, Leia is Force sensitive. She understands Anakin is different. Does Han not get a say in this? Like, there is no way that Han would buy into.
Okay, so this is where my conclusion is that he fully never read or understood what he read when it came to Trusa Bakura and Tatooine Ghost. Both Han was defending and sticking up, not defending, but giving a more positive feedback about what had happened with her father and the events and stuff like that. So Han, mature enough, centered enough to put Leia, or give Leia another perspective. Because, you know, like in Truth About Korra, he's like, he gives Leia some good reasoning. And then in A Tatooine Ghost, you know, he's like, you know, your father, you know, he couldn't have done what he, like, to be the chosen one, he couldn't have gone through everything that he gone through. He couldn't have gone through everything he'd gone through to not defeat the Emperor. He had to go in on the inside, basically. So there's a lot of information Han gives her, and I poorly paraphrase that, but Han gives Leia reasoning, helps her find critical thinking out of her emotions. Think about that. Today's day and age, everybody responds emotionally. Logic goes out the window. Now, it's okay to connect your intellectual and your emotional bodies, but also if you're going to, usually emotional responses are hasty and things are said that are not meant to be said at the time. That's why it says always let yourself be silent while you're figuring out the emotions before you speak, right? So, but today's day and age, it's all more of like emotional response versus intellectually. So Leia in these stories are, is responding emotionally out of fear, out of disgust, all of that. And Han being intellectual and never doesn't have those emotions and stuff and is looking from the outside in, is giving her some things to ponder and think about. Helping her find that middle ground of the intellectual versus the emotional. Yeah. So there we go. All right. So let's move on this.
Any of that dual identity thing. He would say Anakin is Vader, and you want to name my son after the guy that tortured me and froze me in carbonite?
Now he's just now giving some condescending remarks that none of that has ever happened between Leia and Han whatsoever.
That tortured you, that killed Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's ridiculous. Not until Harry Potter would a worse naming decision be made in a piece of fiction, and I will absolutely die on this hill. How did you make?
Now, so there you go. And there's 28 comments here. Why don't you like the name Harry Potter? So they gets into that. And then I swear the line, you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did in the Kenobi series is the only reason this misinterpretation is so popular today. I don't even think that Casual Chris was even referring to that at all, because he says he's comparing Vader as a robot, as a robot mechanic person versus Anakin, who was a humane, he was, had used humanity with that. So all these people here, it's ridiculous. So you guys can find this and look at the comments and stuff here. And this one says, yep. Love the point you make about people underestimating Leia's grasp of the nuances of the situation. He did not, like this guy, Alex, whatever his name is, did not even share nuances. He was making it cut black and white for Leia in his explanation. She knows this is her biological father, and she knows he blew up the planet, tortured her. Basically, it was Tarkin, because when you get into the lore, Vader did not agree with that. But again, it happened, and he went along with it. So, we can say he's guilty by association. I don't know. So also knows her brother is advocating for Anakin while condemning Vader. If Luke is capable of that, why do people assume Leia isn't? So this is a good point. If Luke is capable of distinguishing between the two, why can't Leia? She's intimately aware of everything going on here. So that's a great point right there. If Luke can distinguish between the good in Vader, who is Anakin, versus Vader, why can't Leia? And she had to get there. And those stories that were mentioned is her way there. And the conclusion part of the healing for the family, not just her, but for the family, and maybe even the galaxy in a sense, was naming her youngest after her father, Anakin. And she can distinguish between the two because she named him Anakin. If she couldn't, that wasn't going to happen. This guy probably thinks Obi-Wan beat Vader in Kenobi. Laugh out loud. Are we already into cringe factor? No, we're not. We're going to get into now. Let me go ahead and close this, remove. Let's go ahead and get into our new Jedi Order lore talk. Let me see here. I wanted to do this. So we're having, like I said, this is a heavy topic stream here. So let's go ahead and I did prepare, and this is the wrong button. I did prepare a small slideshow. Yay. So I nerded out for you guys this morning when I caught up. Excuse me. But before we get started, let's go ahead and take a refresher break. In other words, let's go take a shit, right? Justin or Pierce might understand where that's coming from. And we get some more CAF, refresh our drinks or what have you, and then we'll get into our lore talk.
Someone asked me to give the best reason why someone should read the expanded universe. After giving it a lot of thought, here's what I have to say. The expanded universe respects the reader. In the expanded universe, Luke Skywalker's optimism continues where it left off in Return of the Jedi. He's fulfilled hope to the galaxy, just like Obi-Wan said he would, not like the Disney movies where he gave up on the Jedi or even the whole galaxy for that matter. The character you see in those movies is not Luke. Luke isn't a quitter. He's not a pessimist. He's a leader. He's inspirational. And he's always there for his friends in times of need. Another character is Han Solo. He's introduced to us in A New Hope as a loner, a man who cares only for himself and nobody else. But by the end of Return of the Jedi, that all turns around when he finally finds friends he can trust and a true love to spend the rest of his life with. And that's exactly what he does in the expanded universe. Han is a devoted husband and father to Leia and their kids. He loves his family above all else. In the new movies, Han turns out to be a selfish deadbeat dad who ran out on his family when things get tough. It's a complete 180 from the character that we saw from Return of the Jedi. Now, another thing the EU does is it rewards its readers. Attention to detail when it comes to continuity has never been done at such a level as when it was performed by the expanded universe. Avid readers will constantly be rewarded for their diligence as comics, novels, video games, and even children's books share connections throughout the entire series, making it almost a flawless, continuous story. And though it has its minor flaws, it's still the best overall story and continuity out there, period. That's what the EU does. It respects and rewards its readers. And that's the best reason you should give it a try. Long live the expanded universe.
Long live the expanded universe. Well, here we are. So again, this is something that I did a little misstep. I always plan on doing it. And I even announced even when I briefly mentioned the Mandalorian's involvement in the Yuuzhan Vong War. Well, these stories were created after the full release of the New Jedi Order, I believe, or just as it was ending. I don't have the exact dates, but so you could say this wasn't an afterthought, but it just gave us another look at what other places were fighting the Vong. You know, like individual stories in a sense. And this included the Mandalorians, since they are of a fighting culture. They are of a fighting culture. And so I thought, well, we should just get into this now, since it's mentioned and it's fresh in my mind, so that I don't forget to do that. So we are going to do that now. So we're going to do it now. All right. So if you guys have read the Boba Fett Practical Man, that gets into that story. And it's a novella that is from Karen Travis. So do we have Travis haters in here? Do we have Travis haters in here? And I would like to say also to all, first of all, because we do have Gatekeeper in here and I missed the opportunity then when he first appeared, let's go ahead and do this here first. Where is it at?
Because there's a fucking gatekeeper. There's a fucking gatekeeper.
I hopefully that played, because that did not even sound off on my end. That was weird.
Because there's a fucking gatekeeper. There's a fucking gatekeeper.
Oh, all right. And then with those who like to lurk and hate watch.
Bitch, sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Bitch, sit down.
That was weird. These are not playing like how I want.
Certified boogeyman. I'm the one that up to score with them. The industry can hate me. Fuck them all and they mama.
How crazy is that? Okay. I'm not on Rumble. I know Rumble has been doing like cutoffs on through some of the videos clips that you share. That was weird. That's odd. But anyways, this epic failure on StreamYard's side. All right, so Boba Fett Practical Man audio. So there you go. So if you want to listen through it, then there you have the opportunity. Boba Fett equals Robert Fett. Maul may not be Darth Vader, but Maul killed a Vong warrior with his bare hands in a pit fight at least. Yeah. So there you go. All right, so Boba Fett Practical Man. This is basically written by Karen Travis, and it's the Mandalorians fend off the Yuuzhan Vong invaders during the war. It's an ebook. So it's an ebook, and again, Soul Assassin has shared the link. And so here we go. So let's get into this. So we have this here. So one thing that's pretty cool here, and I shared this this quote on Twitter. This is what Boba Fett says to Kubret. Make sure everyone knows that a Mandalorian called Brika Jaban died to save a citizen of the New Republic. Of course, who was she? Can you tell me any more? What did she save? You, Jedi, you. So during this time, we had Nomenor in disguise, and he met with I think his alias was Udilin, I think. So yeah, but anyways, he was recruiting Mandalorians. He was basically recruited a Mandalorian. Sorry about that. Goran Baveen. So you guys might know who he is by learning more about him, like even in Legacy of the Force. And then basically Thalot, Bilef, and Tur Abes. So I guess I'm butchering those, I think. Yeah, more than likely. To, I guess you could say, aid and assist. And so we have that. So we have, sorry about that. I got distracted. But anyways, let me go back to the chat. So through Baveen, they basically were quote unquote recruited to aid and assist the Vong through Nomenor. Now Nomenor has planted so many like seeds throughout the galaxy, and as we progress along towards the ending of the New Jedi Order series, not the era, because Darkness Trilogy ends it, we find out more and more on the things Nomenor did. And that's all I'm going to say. So, to the New Republic, it looked like the Mandalorians were siding with the Yuuzhan Vong, just like almost like the Peace Brigade. And this right here, they were brought in to help assist the Grim Industrial Planet off the Perlemian trade route, Perlemian raid trade route. And but also Baveen has also seen how they were betrayed in a sense as well. And they meet Nomenor on the planet and under the alien of Udilin or whatever it's called, and provides Boba Fett with the location of the rendezvous where he and a selected number of Fett's troops are to meet. Nor plans to reveal the true nature to Fett, as the location lies along the main invasion route to the Yuuzhan Vong. Vong will take into the galaxy. So basically, what is so interesting about the story is Nomenor was using them, and then he was going to get rid of them. And to make the long story short, I guess you could say, out of the novella. And Boba Fett and his comrades, and he's Mandalore during this time. Boba Fett is Mandalore during this time. And but they realize the betrayal. But they still They still played along with it. But the New Republic see them as traitors in a sense, or are taking sides, because Mandalorians never really took sides, really, in a sense. They always cared for themselves, their home world and stuff like that, and they did what they needed to do for themselves, right? That same mentality that Boba Fett has always exuded, right? And so through that, Boba Fett planned the demise. And let me get to this here where I'm going to go to. The Battle of Mandalore ensued. So I think this is around, like I said, I could be wrong, like 28, 29 BBY. And this battle, of course, was fought on Mandalore. And there was the Yuzhong Vong warriors and the Mandalorian who inhabited the planet. And mind you, every single person that is a Mandalorian, even the child who's trained in the culture, were fighters. So they stood up against the Yuzhong Vong invasion of Mandalore and of the galaxy. And this fight ensued. And then this is something I wish I would have shared and on Twitter. But this is Goran Bavine, a quote. You think anyone's stupid enough to try invading like the Empire did after we kicked Vong Shebs like that? So basically, I love Goran Bavine. He is such a wonderful character who kept Boba Fett in line. Mandalorian lore before Disney Star Wars was so much more interesting. Correct. Let me go ahead and move the screen, our shift. There you go. So the Battle of Mandalore. Now, in the early events of the Yuzhong Vong, in that Jubilee wheel, some Mandalorians did rescue Han and them from there. So they had some help during that time as well. So that's a brief. Wait, they weren't pacifists? No, they weren't. So there was a little bit of help from them during that time as well. But the Battle of Mandalore. What do you have in mind? It'll take time to mobilize a whole army on Mandalore. This is Goran Bavine and Boba Fett. And we'll take massive casualties if we make a move before we know exactly what we're dealing with here. This is technology we've never seen before. Sit and wait, you must be. They fooled us, now we fool them. We play nice and look like we're on their side while we gather intel until we have enough to hit them hard. We pretend to be in it for the money. So there you go. So once they gathered their intel and all this and stuff, they provided the New Republic with resources. And so when you go back and read Legacy of the Force, I think before Revelation or maybe after, when Jaina goes to train with the Mandalorians, that this whole event is referenced again. And they bring it up, as a little like slap in the face sting to Jaina on her mother, regarding her mother and the New Republic not giving Mandalore aid after they helped them out. So that's something that, continuity wise, very, very great, very good, I guess you could say, callback. Very good callback. So Goran Bavine and Boba Fett discussing on their what they discovered, what's going on, and how they can play it to their advantage. Lassen Canderous Ord. Was it a Fett Canderous Ord's aid? I could be wrong. The Mandalorians weren't stupid. They knew what they were up against. Correct. There you go. Now, going into later on, we lost nearly 1.5 million people fighting the Vongese. That might be a small change for Coruscant, but it's a disaster for us. We lost a lot of our best troops, our farmlands, been poisoned, and our industrial infrastructure is still shot to Heron after 10 years. So maybe this is the ideal time to bring some people home, gather in the exiles while the rest of the galaxy is busy. Neth, Balar, and Garad note the damage the battle wreaked during the meeting of the Mandalorian clan. So telling this, and even when you get into, again, Legacy of the Force, and they discovered a big ore of Beskar, the Mandalorian ore, iron, that was never taken by the Empire or never destroyed by the Vong invasion of Mandalore. And so that was another point to where Boba Fett, the Mandalore, used to help the economy and bring people back. So that is very, like, again, that's another very interesting callback as well, because you have the synergy of continuity. It was Mandalorian, the ultimate. That's right. Thank you, Soul Assassin. See, I got this both. Yeah, Cassius Fett was before and Candaris. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Had my time frames confused a little bit, and that it's now settled. So there you go. A bit of Mandalorian events during the Yuuzhan Vong. They sat back. They act like they were still on their sides. They fought them, and then they collected resources too while they were acting as if they were on their sides. The Battle of Mandalore happened because their deceit against the Vong was discovered. And what they found out about the Vong, they shared with the New Republic to help aid and assist on different fronts of the battle during the Yuuzhan Vong invasion. So very interesting right there. I'm glad that like events like this happened and was given a story in the lore, because you know we are so centralized. When we read the New Jedi Order, we're so centralized towards the higher ups, the government, the Jedi, all of that, that we hardly get to see different areas and sectors fighting their own battles, defending their own planets, all of that. So it just gives us a broader look of what was going on during that time. And so I highly recommend it. I almost made this the book of the week. You might see a book of the week coming up in the future, but our novella, basically. So check it out if you don't have it on your library. It might be in, it's an ebook. So Soul Assassin did share the link to it. I was going to say check out the thrift books, but it's an ebook. So check out the link and, you know, get your listen in and get caught up on the New Jedi Order era events. So with that being said, we're going to finally start moving on into our cringe factor, but I got to use the refresher. Seriously, I got to go. So let me see. Is there a longer video I can put on for this? I'm going to play this. This is a 5-minute one. So here we go.
3, 2, 1.
Everything published was canon.
Good day, Star Wars fans. Long live George Lucas era of Star Wars. If you are new here, welcome, welcome. I have been watching, researching, comparing, and contrasting the original lore to Disney's Star Wars lore. I have shown disdain on a beloved title being used for a new miniseries, and that is Tales of the Jedi. Taking a very loved Old Republic story title to try to recreate a similar feeling to a different story era, hoping to appease the expanded universe fans they told aren't wanted anymore. The show has 6 episodes, mostly written by Dave Filoni. Those who don't know, he is the creator and director of The Clone Wars. The average runtime of Tales of the Jedi short stories is about 15 minutes. Not a lot of time to develop a story or character. The dialogue isn't very intriguing. Continuity is not in line with their own stories and lore. Clone Wars by Tartakovsky, which had little dialogue with a short story and plot, gave more depth and development. Thinking about how I have disagreed with the title use, why did they not pay respect to the creator of the original and true Tales of the Jedi, Tom Veitch, who passed away February of this year? No, he is not the only contributor, but is the main writer and developer of the stories. You would have thought Disney Lucasfilm would give a respectful note to the creator behind the original title they appropriated. After all, Tom Veitch and George Lucas created the Sith lore together. This brings to mind how Disney Lucasfilm praised Filoni for the Night Sisters and the Dathomirian Witches in a publication that came out on the passing of Dave Wolverton. It took people like Open Airlock Policy and myself to gain Disney Lucasfilm's attention to take notice and pay respect. Tom's passing was due to complications of COVID, leaving his daughter, Angelica Stasola, to organize a GoFundMe to help Veitch's widow, her mom, Martha, keep her home and medical care through the funeral expenses. As of now, I don't know any of the outcome. It is unclear if Disney Lucasfilm helped with any expenses. As we know, they can't honor contracts with their authors. Why would they reach out and help? This is clearly what a corporation does. There is no compassion and honor to who came before. They just want to suck the legacy dry. The titles even look the same. Don't be mistaken. The company and its lore is as disingenuous as its approach and handling of what came before. Let's hold them accountable for their actions. Rest in peace, Tom Veitch. Thank you for your contribution to the original Star Wars lore.
You want to buy some death sticks?
You don't want to sell me death sticks.
I don't want to sell you death sticks.
Eventually.
This is how
Star Wars
dies. With thunderous applause.
All right, we are back and I feel better, and we're gonna get going through this. So now we're gonna have multiple things of cringe factor. The poll did close, and 26 people who voted, 100% say they like Darth Vader over Maul. So we'll get into that story here pretty soon. But what I wanted to cover is basically, was there a soft reboot prior to the buyout by Disney? What do you guys think? Did you ever, as EU people, or as actually Star Wars, George Lucas era people, because the EU makes up 85-90% of the lore. So that's a whole huge gaping amount of lore, right? So once it's tossed and removed, you have this huge void that Disney planned to fill in with their version of Star Wars, right? So prior to the buyout, did you think there was a soft reboot going on? Now, we can simply say, yeah, because of TCW, but was that really the focus? Was that just someone just, inserting their own wishes of the lore, while the EU was sitting there, the novels, the comics, the games and stuff that was sitting there just cleaning up the mess being created. So now that's the question here. So let's get into our cringe factor.
So uncivilized.
So uncivilized. So what do you guys think? All right, before I pull up everything, I'm gonna get into the chat. If Leland and Pablo Hidalgo had a legitimate information about the EU being rebooted, this information would have been revealed on April 25th, 2014, when the expanding universe was quote unquote decanonized, correct? And that's one thing that I'm gonna talk about here pretty soon. If it's a distraction, not a focus on them destroying the legacy. And at OG Star Wars, this is the Black Death. Hello. Care to explain why you're hiding my messages in the chat? I never said anything bad. I see you right now, and I don't hide people's messages. In fact, I haven't been even really active in the messages to actually hide. So there we go. This would have helped further solidify their justification of decanonizing the EU, correct? It had been used as a huge weapon of like, see, the EU was never canon to George, and they were planning on a soft reboot or a reboot in general. And let's see, the worst thing about this is Obi-Wan literally left Vader alive again when he had the chance to, oh, you're talking about later on in that? Yeah. In the Disney story? Yeah. Let's see here. And like I said, the Black Death 6482, I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm not even actively hiding anything or even like highlighting anything or corresponding with the chat a lot like I normally do. So with that being said, I don't know what the problem is on your end. All right, so let's get into this. Let me go ahead and pull up what I need to share the screen. See, I see you, Black Death. I do. I don't know what's going on. I have no idea. So let's see here. Do I need? Okay. Chrome tabs. Okay. Make sure I have the correct one. This is it. Here we go. Yeah, Black Death. I haven't been doing anything. I haven't done anything. I haven't been hiding. In fact, I think I've responded to at least one of yours already. Maybe Rogue Mod? No, I don't think so. I have no idea. Like this one is here, and this is after you respond. I had one some right there. And here's another one right here. Hold on. All right. So again, I don't know what's going on, and I see you perfectly. All right. All right. And only mod I have here on the YouTube side right now that's showing up is Soul Assassin, and he doesn't do anything unless I say, unless it's really, really something that needs to be hidden. It could be a glitch. I don't know. All right. All right. Oh, it's Gabriel. I've seen him responding to. Yep. So Gabriel here. And I'm going to pull up these other two here because we only see what is shown in the tweet without the whole full context. But this is what's being done and said here that people have jumped on as saying, see, told you the EU was never canon. They were getting ready to reboot it and Disney never did anything, blah, 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 blah. So they're jumping onto this. But when you get into equivocations that have no truth behind them, or the meaning is something different, like they're because equivocations is telling something but hiding something. So basically equivocation. Information informed or confirmed from two pretty high up people. The expanding universe was stopped before the Disney buyout. No, it was not stopped before, because you had writers writing like the Sword of the Jedi. You had games like 1313 coming out, games like the Battle of the Sith and Battlefront. And then you had other novels being created, like the Kenobi novel. You had, you had the legacy comics still being made continued because the story wasn't fully done yet, right? Because you had the Anya Solo portion of Legacy still coming out. There were so many novels coming out during the time and so many cancellations at the time that if you do your research, you will see the pattern. Things were still being created. Not the expanded universe was not stopped before Disney buyout. In fact, things were canceled, yes, but there were also novels still being created. And then, like the Tarkin novel, was decided that that's going to go in the Disney continuity. And so Lucino had to go and make changes in that novel. Whereas the Kenobi novel, for example, was kept in the original continuity. Yes, and the Old Republic update was in 2025. Maul Lockdown came out at the beginning of 2014, correct. So they weren't stopped. The EU was not stopped before the buyout. This is no gotcha. Well, perfect. You just misunderstood what was being said here. I'm an EU fan above all else. But very interesting for sure. Thanks to Jacob Kennedy, so Creepy Kennedy, for asking again. For asking for what? For asking again. These are back in 2018, some of these. So let's go ahead and look at the pictures in general. So let's click on this. Then I'm going to make sure that we could see it in full length. Okay, yes, we can. All right. So this is 2018. So there's no indication that Creepy Kennedy has asked in general during that time, unless his name was Chef or what have you. So this is what was said by Leland. And this is what Chef said during this time. This is 2018. So if this is Creepy Kennedy, then it is. I don't know. If you can answer, the reset happened on April 14th. How long before that was the decision made? Thanks. So they're talking about the reset. The reset was announced April, was it 24th, 25th, or something like that, 2014. So how long was that decision? How long before that was the decision being made? Thanks. At some point before the Disney sale, I can't say when exactly. So they're saying the decision to reboot under Disney happened before Disney. See how this is an equivocation? Doesn't make sense because he's talking about the decision Disney made in April 2014. He's not talking about a decision made prior to them. And there's no indication of any soft reboot or anything other than a couple standalone series, and we'll get to that. And then, and he says, fair enough, thanks. And then we'll get into the next one. So let me close this out. Oh, I'm clicking on that. Let's see here. And there's another thing I need to go back and click on and show. So this is Lucky Kennedy and their conversation. Now below that, Pablo says that nothing came of the conversation. So this is where Lucky Kennedy or Creepy Kennedy got the comment from. So he's using this. He says, sorry to ask, but I was just want to double check this. Leland Shee back in 2019 stated the EU stopped before the sale to Disney. Is that accurate? And then Pablo Hidalgo said, yep. And then he's like, thanks, I had a feeling for a while. So basically that's what he's trying to confirm. However, this is all equivocations. There's no, like they're hiding something behind this. There's no real answer. It's like a roundabout answer, right? And then so this says here at some point before Disney felt like, okay, yeah, that one I already read. So there's one I need to pull up here that gets more into this, this right here. But I shared, and even Tim did his research, and there's no indication that there was a proposed reboot or soft reboot during the time before the sale. What is missing, not shown, is Pablo saying nothing came of it. meaning the EU never rebooted before the buyout. What is also revealed is the continuity keeper does not have an actual date or time frame. The EU never stopped before the buyout either. There were multiple projects coming out that either was canceled or regulated as Disney's Legends. Conclusion, there was no reboot until the buyout. And then so let me go ahead and get into, see here the comment. Because I think this person shared something with me. And maybe not. Oh, it's let me see. It was a, let me close this one out. I'll have to find, close this one. I'll have to find the response to me. So the quote retreat response. Let me see what you're saying. Gabriel is a fake bot fan. Pablo is a traitor. What's his excuse for all the Q&As he did for official fan magazines that utilize EUs to answer questions about movies? Of course he is. Let's see here. I got bored of X. They're just the dimwit to the there's just that dimwit to the point where I don't want waste my time and energy on replying to those fake fans. Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. You know, that's part of my platform here. And if I leave, then they probably will think, oh, we succeeded. We pushed her out kind of deal. And I'm not going to give them that satisfaction. All right. So let me see here. Let me go ahead and pull up that person's response. It's a her or him. I don't remember. But anyways, let's see here. Let me find that. What do you think? Again, did you see if there was any soft reboot during the time? Was there an indication? Oh, I'll get to that one here pretty soon. That's part of what I am talking about here. And where is it? I'm scrolling down. And I also want to talk about, here it is. I got a response back from John Jackson on the Kenobi novel and on the Rebel Dawn or whatever it's called, I keep on calling it the Rebel Dawn. It's not called the Rebel Dawn, but the New Dawn or whatever it's called. All right, so where is it? There we go. All right, so let me share this. And so I wanted to share that with you guys as well. There's a lot to discuss here. Holy heck, we're like packed with topics here. Let's see here, share screen. And what's going on here? There we go. And here we go, share. All right. So here's Gabrielle's response to me. Not entirely true. So she quote retweeted, or wherever she posted this, and I quote retweeted it. Not entirely true. The reboot was in works already. They just weren't explicitly voicing it yet. So she's coming up with these assumptions. No one even implied that. Testing the waters more like, and then this is what Pablo said below to Cucky Kennedy, which I use as evidence as well. It really didn't have but it didn't really result in much. So this is what I said, and we'll get into what Pablo says. Like I stated, he followed up with, it didn't really result in much, which means nothing happened. You implying there wasn't. The trilogy are standalone novels of the big three, Han, Leia, and Luke. Only 2 were relegated to Disney's labeled Legends and 1 to Disney Star Wars Lore. Now, if they were thinking of the declared reboot that was announced in 2014, then yes, they did plan for that. So this is within the buyout I'm referring to. So if they were planning on thinking of declaring a reboot after the buyout, then yes, that was the plan of it. But other than that, there was nothing prior to that. The Big 3 trilogy was written during and after the buyout. Let's see here. So Pablo says here, and even the comics too that was mentioned here, there had been a bit of soft reboot in the works prior. What was the Empire, or that what with the let me rephrase that. Let me reread that. There had been a bit of a soft reboot in the works prior. What with the Empire and Rebellion novels and the relaunch of relaunched in the Shadows of Yavin comic title came out in 2013, but it didn't really result in much. So basically, nothing happened. There was nothing. There was no reboot because they were still continuing with authors writing and keeping continuity with the already established lore. If there was a reboot, those other stories happening around that wouldn't be happening. Wouldn't be happening at all. And so it's telling on how this is going down as a gotcha, which basically there's a lot of equivocations going on here. Yeah, 2013 is after the sale. George Lucas recommended the EU 3 times on video. Yes, George Lucas wasn't informed on this reboot, right? And even when he was talking with Kathleen Kennedy on the interview, when he's talked about the treasure trove. That's a guy. I think I started all this. I don't know. I think I was calling Gabrielle a woman prior to that as well. Campfire scheming. Yes, the Fraudloni campfire mythology. That's what you... All right. So going on with this. Let me see what I'm going to do because I need to scroll to something, but I don't want to reveal. I don't want to reveal a lot. So stop screen. Oh, shit. I just took it out. Never mind. Never mind. I guess I'll just scroll to it and reshare. That was unfortunate, but I can bring it back up. No worries. So there's a lot of people I replied to regarding this, but I'm not going to pull everything up because it's just a repetitive thing that's going on. And so with that being said, let me see here. There's one I'm looking for. Again, I found it in the scroll. Where is it at? Where is it at? Oh, I have a lot of replies going on here. So notifications. Nope. Home. No, I'm not going to find it. Oh, wait. Now I am. Yeah, I am. All right. Let's go here. Here it is. All right. I wasn't fully planning on sharing this. I was just going to go ahead and just share a bit of it without sharing it as a screen share, but I think it's just worth the note of it. So let's get into this. Share. So Rebel Jedi says, soft reboot of Star Wars pre-Disney was just a marketing gimmick to draw in fans who were intimidated by the size of the EU. Hence, stories largely independent that could have later connected to the EU, except Brian Wood, who flat contradicted even the movies. So anything that contradicts the movies, basically, in a sense, is not to be taken seriously, I guess you could say. So this is something that Rebel Jedi has shared, and this, when they started coming out, there's truth to that, because there was no soft reboot. Because again, even John Jackson Miller would have been writing the Kenobi novel to fit the so-called soft reboot, which I had a conversation with, and let me go ahead and pull that one up now. And yes, I had a conversation with, and it was very interesting and very insightful, and a bit of around the bush with it too, because he wasn't going to reveal too much of what I asked. And I did ask him, did he know about the reboot happening after the buyout? So with that, I got some answers, got stuff that where you can come to the conclusion that he knew when he was writing there was a soft reboot, because that's the new Dawn, not Kenobi, but New Dawn. But then I still think, did he know that this reboot was going to happen after the, for the buyout or after the buyout, when he was putting together or finishing up our Kenobi was going into publication. So let's see here. Where is it at? Oh, here we go. Here we go. Let's see here. Okay, so I found one of them. I should have had them all clipped and ready to go, but that's okay. So here we are. Go on, cat. Go, go, go. Go. Oh, sorry, kitty. All right. Kitty cat's okay. Kitty cat's okay. All right. So let me get to the screen so I can better read it here for you. So basically, let me see if this is going to open up. No, it's not going to go to where. And he replied to that, Gabrielle. So basically, I asked him about, talked about how he referenced a lot of EU continuity when writing Kenobi and how, I really loved it and stuff like that. And so this is what he had to say. So while Kenobi was not one of the, actually, this is my question to him. Sorry, I thought I had the other one pulled up. You referenced, so this is his reply to Gabrielle because he's making it sound like he knew there was a soft reboot prior to the sellout, right? And so I wanted to clarify that. So you referenced a lot of events from the novels in the vast timeline. So as a reader, knowing the EU history, it was pretty much in line with keeping continuity and not really a standalone, meaning that it's a novel that basically standalone and with its own events, right? It does have its own events, but there's a lot of like legacy. It's also piggybacking off of Dark Lord, Rise of Darth Vader. And so there's a lot of callback to this, right? And even the stories with Satine, Satine and TCW, that's one, and then and Siri Tachi. So there's a lot of callbacks to the lore regarding Kenobi. The placement had its, and then Moseb. The placement had it in an area not explored either. So basically the Dark Times, other than being complementary to the Dark Lord, Rise of Darth Vader. When writing A New Dawn, did you know Disney Lucasfilm was getting ready for a reboot? So that's my question to him. And I really didn't think I was going to get an answer, but I did. So I'm going to share. Let me go ahead and remove this. I'm going to scroll up and share more to what this conversation came of with my question. Let me see here. Okay, stop it. Oh, don't freeze on me. Oh my God, I hate when the screen does that. No, don't do this to me. Okay, there we go. That's me crying. About the screen that's freezing up on me. All right. So going back to his first reply to me, and I thought was very interesting. Let's see here. You know what? I'm such a dolt. Let's see here. Get out of there. I could have just clicked on the bottom and revealed them. I thought I quote retweeted them and shared them, but I didn't. So with that being said, let's get back into this. All right. And I wouldn't say this is cringe factor, but in a way it is, in a sense, on showing that there is no, actually there was no reboot. So he basically says on continuity wise, because people think how he replied to Gabrielle or whoever that person is, that he's insinuating a soft reboot because it's a standalone and blah, 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 blah. And so I pointed out some of the continuity that he kept with writing the novel, and he confirmed that. Oh, I definitely wrote it drawing on and not to conflict with previous stories, but the vast majority of references I expected would feel new to most. So basically, he made it easy for people to understand without being confused about who these characters were. So, which is a lot of standard when it comes to a lot of the authors in the EU. They brought back characters or events that you really didn't need to understand from a prior book because everything that you need is in the story already. I can't imagine many people recognize Jabba's townhouse and everything about it came from the Weston Games module. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. And then he goes on to say, and one thing was waiting on was his thing about a new dawn. So as to a new dawn, let me make sure that the screen is sharing to that. Yeah. As to a new dawn, I already started writing so as to be more new reader friendly. So new lore friendly, new reader friendly. And that continued as we tried, not very successfully, to winnow out some of the jargon like refresher. It was more the story group stage that was the new part. So jargon like refresher, that is, so they're trying to weed out some of the jargon like refresher, which I find odd. So they're trying to make it more reality friendly, I guess. And this was more or less the story group stage. That was the new part. So the more or less the story group stage. So that was the new part. They had a story group. So I didn't read yet, and I planned on reading it for CAF chat today, but he shares more information, a link to more information. And I think I'll do that next week. So stay tuned for that next week. So in a way, this says something without saying what I asked. That under the story group, he was writing for the new lore. So the conclusion he knew of the reboot that was happening was getting ready to be announced in 2014. And so I thought that was interesting. So he's saying so much without saying it, really. Now, this is not a equivocation like what was being said by Hidalgo and Leland. So he is applying to what the new story group wants him to do. So there you go. Let's see here. Remove. Interesting bit there with this so-called reboot that really never came to be, never was. And so you can't, no one could say that, oh, well, Disney didn't do it first. They were already rebooting prior to then. No, they weren't. No, they weren't. The buyout began in October 2012, finalized December 2012. Some development within the lore was still going on and not canceled. So the EU was not stopped. And those pieces were still keeping continuity. If there's a reboot, then they wouldn't be keeping continuity. There'd be new direction already being established, right? There wasn't. There was not at all. All right. So let's go ahead and get into the next bit here. But first...
CAF. Lots of it. For me and for the Ready Room. I have a feeling this mission is not one we can fly in our sleep.
And, you know, I think it's crazy how people will take stuff, not further look into the development history of actions speak louder than words, all of this that's going on, and stick to a quote and thinking that this is the truth, the only truth, and what have you, without looking further into stuff, right? There's a lot of that going on. Let's see here. And so as we move on with the timeline, we have a lot of crap going on with like Disney firing a lot of their production people and stuff like that that goes into like television and stuff like that. And but I'm not going to get into those things. And a lot of things being canceled nowadays. Now, I'm not going to get into some of the recent things that have been being revealed right now. So maybe Purist or any one of the gatekeepers can highlight those a little more. But what I wanted to get into here, and yes, we're going to time. Iconic Star Wars game officially removed from stream without warning. What game do you think that is? So, stream has suddenly delisted a large number of games without any warnings, including one classic Star Wars title. There are, of course, dozens of incredible Star Wars video games. This is pre-Disney out there that you can play right now. So I'd say pre-Disney, the games now, no. But losing a video game, any video game, is always a damn shame. So what do you think that is? So I'm going to reveal it right now. This is short and sweet, but I wanted to get, oh shit. No, you did not. But I wanted to get into this. A classic Star Wars game is no longer on stream. Search your feelings. You know it to be true. So with this image, you can kind of give it, you can basically get a full understanding of what game it is. So let's see what they're saying. Well, 15 Disney licensed video games have vanished from stream. The most notable by far is Star Wars Dark Forces. Dark Forces, which is a foundation. I want to say foundation. That doesn't sound right. Is an inspiration. That still doesn't sound right. But anyways, for Andor, the character, for Rogue One, and even for Finn, right? Original release back in 1996, Dark Forces is a first-person shooter set around the events of A New Hope. In it, what plays Kyle Katarn, one of the most favorite, beloved EU characters outside of the movie character ever. A mercenary for the Rebel Alliance who discovers the Galactic Empire's secret Dark Trooper project, an initiative designed to create super powerful stormtroopers. The good news is that the stream has only pulled the original 1995 version of the game. Star Wars Dark Forces Remaster, which was released in 2024, is still available to buy. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for the following 14 games listed below. So they pulled the original for the remaster. So what do you guys think about this? Now, I haven't had a chance to explore the remaster or the technicalities behind that and what was remastered, what changes were made, or any of that. So I can't really say if there has been changes, if there has been Disney stuff, if it has been Disneyfied or anything like that. I can't say that. So those who have the game, the remastered, let me know. I don't want to say there is and there not be. But OG, Andor is a new version of Kyle Katarn. Yeah. So if you have played the remastered, let me know about that. So the original taken down. I think I do have the original on GOG or whatever it's called. I wonder if that's no longer there anymore. The original was gifted to me. I just haven't had a chance to play it. Okay, so I'll have to check that out. I didn't even think about that until now. Dun, dun, dun. All right. And so just a quick, like, this is what's going on type thing I wanted to share. So let me know. You can tell me in the Discord. You can DM me on Twitter or whatever if you play the game and if you notice if there's any differences with that. All right. So let me pull up one more cringe factor bit, and then we will start closing out CAF chat. So like I said, there's a lot to talk about. So many of you guys know that, or many of you guys have voted on what or who you like between Vader and Darth Maul. So let me see here. I'm trying to scroll up to get what I want to get here. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that as soon as I find. I thought I had the article up and I don't. So that sucks. Let me see here. Where is it? You know, I can't find it. I will share the link But there is, I mean, I can't find it. There is an article saying that today, because of the Darth Maul series, that well, I was reading something, sorry. So there is an article that says that Maul now is taking Vader's place as the most beloved villain character of all time. Of all time. And that's why I asked you, who do you prefer? Who do you prefer between the two? And do you believe that's the case? Do you believe that he is now taking Vader's place as the all-time favorite character? I'm not even on the screen. Hello. Let's see here. To my knowledge, the remaster didn't Disneyfy or anything. Typically, remasters just improve graphics, stuff. Bounty Hunter release on stream. Yeah, most likely in the case, yes, that's the case. But nowadays, you never know. Remakes, however, yeah, I know what I know the difference between the two, but I still ask because there's always that opportunity. There is always that opportunity. And Mike says, no, you don't think that. Yeah, I don't think so either. I don't think so either. So I wanted to bring this up. Now, again, I couldn't find the article that was shared to me, and that's okay. That's okay. And I'm just reading something. I was curious to see what all of you longtime fans have to say about this. And if any of you guys are watching the newest, the Maul series, what do you think about it? What is your opinion about it? Are you keeping track of what's going on? Even if you're not watching it, are you keeping track on what's going on? So let me know. Let me know what's going on. Let me know what you think. And it is time to close out Cav Chat. We had a lot to talk about. This was a heavy topic day. And there's some topics I didn't cover, which is being postponed to next Thursday, like Lucy Wilson's 501st interview. That will be next week. When all these topics were coming up and I was planning last night, I was like, you know what? There's some things that needs extra time and their own space to cover. So I'm pushing them back. So that's what I did. So next week, we'll read that article that John Jackson Miller sent me. And then we'll also, go over the interview of Lucy Wilson in the 501st. And what's crazy is that, some people say, oh, well, she worked in the same facility or she worked right alongside next to George Lucas. When in the 501st, and we'll get into this, that 501st interview, she shared that they were in separate buildings. Like their locations were in different places for a while. So, again, the more you know. The more you know. We'll get more into that later on. All right. So thank you guys again for hanging out. It is time for me now to get into my regular life. Get outside, touch some grass, if you know, you know, and get ready because tonight I teach 2 classes. I teach Lift and Flow, which is basically a yoga class with weights. We have like upper body and lower body sections of the class with cardio HIIT, and then with vinyasa flow, and then of course grounding down with some yoga and shavasana. So very, very focused class, and I move along with them. So I got a plan for that class. I got to pull myself together for that, and hot vinyasa, which basically doesn't need as much attention as a lift and flow. It's a little bit of things what I do here. And of course, whatever else I need to get done before I have to leave. So with that, no booty yoga. I haven't taught that in a while. No booty yoga. I'm sorry. Yeah. So with that being said, thank you guys for hanging out with me and going over all these topics. And ask questions when you see things. do your research when you see things, because not what everybody says is exactly what people are perceiving them to say, right? And if we've been seeing this long since the buyout, we've been seeing this narrative of, you know, basically people destroying the very thing that George Lucas built, and that includes the EU. That includes the EU. And for whatever reason, like, I don't know what these people have to gain to show the EU wasn't canon, in a sense. Like, what is there to gain with that? What is there other than, like, I don't like you, so I got to prove you wrong? What is there to gain? But anyways, continuing to talk George Lucas era Star Wars is what this channel is about. To address things, to talk about the lore, and any news that's going on with the current state of Star Wars. So compare and contrast as well. So the description of my channel is on the channel page. Very distinctive, very clear. And as we close here, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're catching the replay, thank you so much for hanging out. Leave your comments below. If you haven't got on Rumble, get over there, follow and subscribe. Let's grow that channel platform for OG Star Wars. And yes, long live the expanded universe. So thank you guys again for tuning in, hanging out with me for a cup of CAF to chat Star Wars. You are friggin' amazing. And let's go ahead and close out with this.
That's just a rumor that has kind of crawled up through fandom for years and years and years. I know that Tim met George Lucas. They had a sit-down conversation before the first book was done. I know that as with any of the novels, everything is cleared through Lucasfilm, and 100% for anything as major as a love interest being developed for Luke. That's a decision that George would have given a yes or no on.
Another happy landing.